Good day to all. I am Margaret Blondell of Trinidad and Tobago, and my topic of discussion today is APA's Advanced Pricing Arrangements. I will give a short overview of this topic. Advanced pricing arrangements are addressed under the transfer pricing heading, Administrative Approaches to Avoiding and Resolving Transfer Pricing Dispute, in Chapter 4 of the OECD Transfer Pricing Guidelines for Multinational Enterprises and Tax Administrations of 2010. Further details are contained in the annex to Chapter 4 of the above guidelines. This annex gives detailed instructions to the tax administration on how to carry out APA negotiations. The instructions given are also of guidance to the taxpayer. Disputes occur with M&Es and the tax administrations in their respective jurisdiction when the transactions entered into with their related parties are not settled at what the tax jurisdiction believes to be an arm's length price. These disputes can result in costly and lengthy audits and even litigations which would put undue strain on the resources of the tax administration and the taxpayer. To avoid the issues mentioned above, the taxpayer would usually initiate an APA agreement with the tax administration. The OECD definition is as follows. An advanced pricing arrangement is an arrangement that determines in advance of control transaction an appropriate set of criteria, example method, comparables and appropriate adjustments thereto, and critical assumptions as to future events for the determination of the transfer pricing for those transactions over a fixed period of time. Salient aspects of this definition are control transactions, appropriate set of criteria, fixed period of time. Terms of the definition needs to be explained in order that the APA arrangement and agreement are understood fully. Controls on transaction means transactions between two enterprises that are associated enterprises with each other. An appropriate set of criteria means the method, comparables, and appropriate adjustments thereto, and critical assumptions to future events. A fixed period of time, the agreements are normally made for a period of time, usually about 3 years. APAs and MAPs. MAPs are mutual agreement procedures entered into by tax administration. These arrangements do not include the taxpayers. APAs are agreements entered into between the taxpayer and the administration. The other competent administration may or may not be part of these agreements. MAPs, APAs are agreements in which both taxpayer and tax administrations are involved. Types of agreements. The different categories of APA are unilateral arrangements solely between the taxpayer and the tax administration. Problems may occur in this type of arrangement as the other tax jurisdiction in which members of the M&E are operating may not be in agreement with the arrangement. This would lead to conflict as the other jurisdiction may subject the group members in their jurisdiction to audit examinations and possible tax payments, that is, payment of double taxation on the entity. Bilateral agreements are single mutual agreements between the competent authority of two tax administrations. The problem is as above if other jurisdictions are involved who are not consulted. Multilateral, more than one bilateral mutual agreement. This is the ideal situation as all parties are allowed to examine and agree or negotiate the terms which satisfy all parties concerned. Objectives of AP: to facilitate principled, practical and cooperative negotiations to resolve transfer pricing issues, expeditiously and prospectively to use the resources of the taxpayer and the tax administration more efficiently, and to provide a measure of predictability for the taxpayer. Some advantages of APAs: 1. It eliminates uncertainty by allowing the predictability of the tax treatment of international transactions before they occur. 2. It covers a period of time into the future, and once the taxpayer satisfies the conditions set out in the agreement, the tax administration will not make adjustments to the values reported. the taxpayer is in a better position to predict his tax liability. 3. The APAs allow for an extension of a period of time in the agreement. 4. The APA can be renegotiated on the expiration of the agreement. 5. Taxpayer and tax administrations can consult and cooperate in a non-adversarial spirit and environment. And 6. Free flow of information between taxpayers and administrations are engendered and allowed. Some disadvantages of the APA agreement. Unilateral APAs may present some difficulties with the tax jurisdiction not involved in the agreement. Corresponding adjustments may not be agreed between tax administration. APA programs may place undue strain on the tax administration and the taxpayer because of the resources required to negotiate a contract, which is human and financial resources. The taxpayer involved in the agreement may not be sheltered or protected from other audits. For instance, if he has an audit on transactions with another entity or other entities, he may still be subjected to the audit in spite of his presenting all the required information for the relevant transaction for the current AP on the current service or product. This brief overview of this topic is not conclusive or comprehensive. The documents referenced in this slide can be used for more detailed explanation. APAs and MAPs provide some measure of comfort to both the administration and the taxpayers alike. The taxpayer, usually large enterprises or MNEs, seek this sort of arrangement as it facilitates their operations by avoiding lengthy and costly tax audits and possible litigation. These agreements are more conducive to the taxpayer as they are involved in the process, as opposed to MAPs in which they have no input and have to abide by the arrangement made by the tax jurisdiction. They are initiated by the taxpayer and negotiated with the tax administration before an agreement is made. In Trinidad and Tobago, we have no transfer pricing regulation. The taxpayers are subjected to tax treaties, withholding tax agreements entered into by tax administrations similar to MAPs. The taxpayer is now placed in a position where they are forced to manipulate around these arrangements by planning their operations in line with these treaties. Taxpayers operating in our jurisdiction would look forward to the introduction of these legislations, which have been tabled in Parliament and is under the purview of the current administration to implement these transactions. Thanks to all of you for your undivided attention during this presentation.